of fundamental issues which need to be tackled in our country. A lot of them are allowed just to atrophy under the Conservatives. They ran out of any reforming zeal. But given the scale of problems that we face, from health to infrastructure and so on, he just doesn't have the blueprint that is going to put that right. I think he can do some things that will improve matters, but this will not be a transformative government. He doesn't have it in him to be transformative. The cabinet isn't good enough to be transformative either. So I think it's the best you can hope for is that things get a bit better. And, even that would be some.
Welcome back to the British Report, where the only thing hollowing out faster than a Halloween pumpkin is the British Army's budget. If you thought Sir Keir Starmer's Master of Diplomacy Act was going well, I suggest you grab a stiff drink and settle in, because the legendary Andrew Neil has just taken a flamethrower to the Prime Minister's latest grand gesture. On Tuesday, Starmer stood before the nation and announced a historic plan to deploy British boots on the ground in Ukraine. Yes, you heard that correctly. Actual British and French forces stationed in military hubs in Kiev as part of a peacekeeping effort. It sounds noble, it sounds brave, and it sounds like something out of a Hollywood blockbuster. But according to Andrew Neil, there is just one tiny microscopic problem. Starmer is promising a military that he has effectively starved into non-existence. It is the political equivalent of promising to drive your friends to the airport when you do not actually own a car and have just sold the tyres for scrap metal. Quick favour, if you are loving this, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers have not yet. It is free, takes a second, and means the world to us at the British Report. Thanks if you did. Now, back to the show. Andrew Neil did not just critique the Prime Minister, he dismantled him with the surgical precision of a man who has seen more political blunders than Starmer has had free suits. Neil warned of a national scandal over our defence spending, calling Starmer's Ukraine commitment a purely performative gesture. He pointed out the staggering hypocrisy of a Prime Minister who wants to play world leader on the global stage while spending peanuts on the very men and women he is prepared to send into harm's way. The figures Neil laid out are frankly embarrassing. Defence spending for 2024-25 was £60.2 billion. This year it is projected to hit £62 billion, rising to £63.5 billion by 2027. Now, to you and me, £60 billion sounds like enough to buy a fleet of Death Stars, but in the world of modern geopolitics and with inflation eating away at every penny, Neil argues these rises are peanuts. They are far, far less than the massive increases being funneled into the welfare bill. In fact, Neil made a chilling comparison. Even the appeasement leaders of the 1930s, men like Neville Chamberlain, who aren't exactly remembered for their military gusto, increased defence spending by far more in the face of the rising Nazi threat than Starmer is doing now in the face of a volatile Russia and an unpredictable China. But why would a Prime Minister make such a bold promise if he knows the bank account is empty? Well, Andrew Neil thinks he has found the slippery Sir Keir angle. Neil's theory is as cynical as it is brilliant. He suspects that Starmer only agreed to the boots-on-the-ground plan because he believes the Russians would never actually accept it. It is a bit like promising your spouse a holiday to Mars. You look like a hero for suggesting it, knowing full well that the logistics mean you will never actually have to pay for the tickets. If the peace deal never happens, the troops never have to go. It is performative politics at its most dangerous, using the lives of British service members as a rhetorical poker chip in a game Starmer isn't even truly playing.
Well, I think it's partly because those who gave us Brexit had no idea what to do with Brexit. And it's quite hard. People still struggle to see what the benefits have been. So they think, well, let's get a little bit closer to Europe, but we want to be half pregnant, which, as I understand it, like space babies, doesn't really exist.
Do you understand space babies? Because you can explain it.
Well, I understand space babies don't exist, so I don't think being half pregnant exists either. But I may be entering into territory in which I'm not, I have no great expertise. But there's a case to be made, though the Remainers don't have the guts to make it, for rejoining the EU. I think it's quite a difficult case to make, but it has an intellectual logic and a coherence about it. We made a big mistake. Let's make that mistake right. Let's get back in. Let's see what deal we can get to become a member of the EU. The intellectual case for simply joining the single market, I think, is close to zero for the reasons I've already given. And we now see the damage that European regulation has done. There's almost no new European company in the past 20, 25 years that's worth over $1 billion. Only a handful, whereas America has hundreds and hundreds. Europe, under the dead hand of European regulation, is becoming an economic backwater. Is that really what we want to get back into again, when we would have no democratic say because we wouldn't be an EU member? Or should we really give a thought to think, look, let's get as close to Europe as they will allow us to be, but let's work out how we're going to make a success of this brave new world that we're in now, which is very different from the one before. But the intellectual thinking of the British governing classes is facile at the moment, and they would rather talk about a customs union or, oh yeah, we can be in the single market, but we won't have to do what we're told, and it's a pathetic debate, and it speaks volumes for the quality of the debate on both the Brexit and the Remainer side. It makes me despair.
The broadcaster was also quick to highlight the internal friction within the cabinet. He described Defence Secretary John Healey as a patriot who actually believes in the defence of the nation, but one who is clearly being muzzled by a Treasury that is more interested in its own spreadsheets than in national security. Healey needs to make his voice heard, but in a government led by a man who seems to value the Paris Declaration photo ops more than the actual military hardware required to back them up, that is a tall order. The failure to spend more on our security and the security of our allies is no longer just a policy disagreement. According to Neil, it is a national scandal unfolding in real time. And while Starmer is busy trying to charm the French in Paris, there is a very large orange cloud looming over the Atlantic that is about to rain on his parade. Enter Donald Trump. The US president has been piling pressure on NATO members to stop acting like teenagers living in their parents' basement and actually pay their way, while the UK government has promised to hit 2.5% of GDP on defence by 2027. They have notably refused to set a firm date for reaching the 3% target that many experts, including Donald Trump, insist is the bare minimum for modern security. Imagine the scene. Starmer lands in Washington trying to explain to Trump that he is a global player in Ukraine, only for Trump to point out that the UK's military has been hollowed out to the point where we would struggle to defend a medium-sized village in the Cotswolds, let alone a military hub in Kyiv. The disconnect between Starmer's rhetoric and his reality is becoming a liability. We have a Prime Minister who wants the prestige of a world power but refuses to pay the membership fees. Every time Starmer makes a grand announcement about boots on the ground, he isn't just annoying Andrew Neil, he is alerting every adversary in the world to the fact that Britain is currently bluffing with a very weak hand.
I suspect the more accurate polling is 80% of Labour voters have no idea what a customs union is. So how can they know whether they want to go back into it or not? There is an economic case to be made for rejoining the European Union. There's an economic case to be made for joining a customs union as a first step towards rejoining the European Union. That was Turkey's original idea, get into the customs union first, then get into the EU. They didn't get to the second stage. The economic case for simply joining a customs union, and that, is close to zero. In fact, it would be one of the most stupid economic policies anybody could propose. And the fact that Ed Davey proposes it actually strengthens my case that it is incredibly stupid. We'd have to give up all our free trade deals that we've done with America, India, Japan, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We'd have to accept the whole corpus of European trade law and associated commercial law without a single say in any of that law. We'd be under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice on such matters again. We couldn't do our own trade deals anymore. We join an organization which is now just functional when it comes to trade deals. They spent 25 years trying to negotiate one with 5 Latin American countries. They've finally done it. France is about to derail it. It probably won't happen. and we'd almost certainly have to pay a membership fee to join. Look how much they've made us pay to rejoin Erasmus. And they would probably ask us to hand over any tariff income, a chunk of it, to Brussels as well. So for all these reasons on its own, it's a very bad idea on its own.
The end game here isn't just about Ukraine, it is about the fundamental credibility of the United Kingdom on the world stage. We are living through a period of grave geopolitical threats, as Andrew Neil put it, yet we have a government that seems to think a strategic defence review is a substitute for actual tanks, planes and ships. You cannot peacekeep with a military that is being starved of funds. You cannot deter an aggressor with ambition instead of ammunition. The meltdown in number 10 following Neil's critique is understandable because the truth hurts. Starmer has been caught trying to play the big man with a small budget, and the world is starting to notice. The British report will be following this defence scandal as it develops. Will John Healey finally break ranks? Will the 3% target ever become a reality, or will it remain a long-term ambition that stays forever out of reach? One thing is certain, as long as Andrew Neil is around to point out that the Emperor has no clothes and very few boots, the Prime Minister is going to find it very hard to keep up this performance. Thank you for watching.